is Peter Christopher, Director of the City of Adelaide, the Clipper ship here in Port Adelaide. He has been the director for 20 years now. Started in 2000.
That's correct, yes.
Yeah. What's the ship built?
The City of Adelaide was purpose-built in 1864 in Sunderland, northeast England. It was purpose-built to bring people to Adelaide, and it was a luxury passenger ship at the time it was constructed. It did 23 return journeys. The vessel was capable of carrying up to 300 passengers at a time and carried men, women and children over that period. Going back from Adelaide to London, it carried very few passengers but quite a lot of cargo, mainly wheat, wool and copper. The ship has survived because it's been in constant use. It sailed here for 23 years. It was an isolation hospital in Southampton for 30 years. The Royal Navy took it over in 1923, renamed it HMS Carrick, mounted guns on top, and it became a training ship for Navy cadets. So the fact the ship has been in constant use has meant it survived. It's also a very unique vessel. It's what's known as a composite vessel. It has an iron frame and a wooden hull. And there's only two of those that survive intact today, and that's the City of Adelaide that we're in at the moment and the Cutty Sark in London. The City of Adelaide is 5 years older than the Cutty Sark and in much more original condition. We now have the City of Adelaide in Port Adelaide, having moved it from Scotland in September 2013, arriving here in February 2014. I mean, this was such an amazing project because the ship face being broken up, we did what the UK authorities believed was impossible. They were going to break the ship up because they didn't believe it was possible to move it. They had to move it, it was on private property. And we came up with a plan which involved building a giant cradle under it, jacking the entire cradle up and moving the entire ship. So it's like an egg in an egg carton. And we built this giant 100-ton steel $1 million cradle here in South Australia with the help of the industry all through the state. Shipped it over to Scotland, built it under the ship, jacked the entire thing up and moved the entire ship. Over the past 6 years, we've done a lot of work to clean the ship up, preserve it, present it. We take tours through it on a daily basis, and that's how we generate our income. We're a not-for-profit organisation, we're volunteers, 100% volunteers, and we're not government funded. This is Barry Murphy. Barry's also one of our volunteers. Every person you see is a volunteer, and we're currently preparing the ship to make it COVID safe for visitors, so we're putting a few more gates up.
Yep.
So Barry, do you want to explain what you're doing?
I'm just making this gate to put on these stairs so you can shut it behind us so people don't come up there unless they know what they're doing to come up there.
This is Sven. Sven's also a fellow volunteer. Sven, did you want to explain what you're doing?
Well, I'm making these ceiling boards. I'm cutting up the actual wood.
Yeah, we're replacing this entire deck. This is the saloon deck where the first class passengers were. So the work that Sven's doing will do this little remaining section. This is Brian. Brian is an electrician and does most of our work to maintain it inside. So instead of stumbling around the dark, we can thank Brian for that.
That's me doing the fumbling around in the dark.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Now there's our workshop. So we've found Barry again.
Follow me.
Now, sorry, James, are you right to be photographed as you're moving around?
Yeah,
It's
all good.
James is our most recent volunteer. He's stranded here in Adelaide because of what's going on at the moment and has been with us about a week now.
Yeah, something like
Yeah. This is Ian, who's another volunteer.
Hi, how are you?
Can you explain what you do?
What do? I show people around the ship.
Yeah.
I tell them all about it.
Fellow volunteers as well, who also do most of the trades work on the ship. So you've got Bob, Gordon and Bill. James you met earlier. So every day there's always something happening. and lots of work tidying the place up at the moment for the public. Elizabeth is also, as is everybody else, a volunteer. We're preparing to reopen the ship at the moment. So, Elizabeth, do you want to explain what you normally do down here?
I'm the chief cook and bottle washer.
She's much more than that.
No, I come in one day a week, usually on Wednesday, and we meet and greet, we talk to people, we tell them the story, and then if we can cajole them into doing a tour, then we take them aboard and we bring it all to life for them. So that makes a difference.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Can you, Craig, I'll catch you in the video as well.
Yeah,
explain what you're doing.
What am I doing? I'm vacuuming the 2 containers because they've been unused for quite a considerable time. I don't think I'm shifting many germs, but I'm at least shifting a bit of dust.
Thank you.
My name's Russell Penny. I'm a volunteer at the City of Adelaide clipper ship, and I've been spending a bit of time making models of the City of Adelaide and other relevant ships.
We're a 100% volunteer organisation. We have no paid staff, it's a great level of enthusiasm from a lot of people. Even though we're a volunteer organisation with no paid staff, we do have significant expenses in maintaining and repairing the ship. So all the money we generate through tours and donations all goes towards furthering this project. And so the work that we do really depends on how much money we generate. So in the future going forwards, if we get a certain amount of money, we'll be able to put up a mast. If we get other money, we'll be able to put up a cabin. Now, we've had one woman, Pam Whittle, who is the great-granddaughter of the ship's first captain, Captain David Bruce, who's given us a very significant donation to build replica captain's quarters. So once again, we rely on donations, which we can use for very important developments. Beautiful clipper bow. The wooden ships before had a bow like that went through the water very slowly. This has got a bow like an arrow because of the iron frame that's inside. So instead of doing 4 or 5 knots, this could do 17. So this could travel very, very fast. This is the rudder of the ship. We'll eventually mount it back on the stern of the vessel. It's not the original one. The original was lost in a storm in 1877, and this replacement one was built here on the Port River at Fletcher Slip, remounted to the ship, which then resumed its journey back to England. We've got it separate at the moment because we brought it out a year in advance of the ship, but we will mount it back on the ship in a couple of years' time. Modern ships have what's known as the Plimsoll line on them, which is the safe water line. On this ship it was built before Plimsoll, and what they had was this, which was known as Lloyd's rule. So you have the L and the R, and that was the safe water line of the ship. Everything below that could be underwater and the ship was still regarded as safe. Now these square windows didn't exist when the ship was sailing. They were cut in 1893 when it became a hospital ship. So it was no longer sailing, and that was to allow light and air inside the ship for the patients and the nursing staff. So when the ship was sailing, that was complete, but everything below that could be underwater. And you can actually see the nail holes come right up to here. So the copper came right up to this level. Everything in here, this was completely open from one end of the ship to the other, no bulkheads, no walls, and this was filled with cargo, bringing it to Australia and going back. This is one of the concerts we have on board. When we had a dinner on board the ship, we also had music in there as well. So we regularly do fundraising dinners in there. We do kids' activities, and so we rely on people coming through to appreciate the history of the ship, but also to generate our income. There is a tremendous amount of social history associated with the ship as well, because of the fact that there's something like 250,000 people in Australia who can trace their heritage back to this vessel, to people who travelled out on this ship as either passengers or crew. So the 3 really key elements about this ship are the ship itself and its life at sea and what it did once it stopped sailing, There's the social history of all the passengers and crew and their descendants, but there's also the campaign to save it, because the ship face being broken up, and in 2000 we started a campaign to save the ship. We succeeded in moving it 13 years later with the agreement of the Scottish Government and the National Historic Ships Authority in the UK, and had now got the ship here. In the next couple of years we'll continue to work on it and then move it on to land here at Dock 2, where it'll be the centrepiece of a seaport village. And once the ship is on land, we can then also look at putting masts back on it, a bowsprit, and actually staking it, making it look more like a real ship all over again. So that's a quick overview of the ship's history. And as we take tours around the ship, or now with self-guided tours, people learn about all the much more detailed information about different elements about the vessel itself. This is the original captain, Captain David Bruce. He was the first captain, he's the person who had the ship built, and then two of his sons were also captains here. Captain Alexander Bruce retired here to Adelaide and became the harbour master. So his descendants are here in Adelaide, and it was his granddaughter who gave us the money that we're going to use to build replica captain's quarters. But also there's Bible over here. So this Bible belonged to Captain Alexander Bruce, so it was the actual Bible used for services and burials at sea.
If you look out this window here, that way, that ship there towed this ship in 1887 on our last voyage out of Australia.
1886, yeah.
1886.
Yeah. I mean, we all learn from our history, and our past really determines who we are and what our future is. South Australia is a relatively young country, doesn't have a lot of significant history, and to have a ship like this 156 years old is really very, very significant. It's the oldest ship in Australia. It's one of the 10 most historic ships in the world, and to actually have that here in Port Adelaide is very significant, and for people to have the opportunity to now to come and be part of living history is really, really important. One of the things I didn't point out, which we should, is if we look over here, right at the top, there's a rat up there. Now, all ships had rats, and one of the things we do for kids is actually get them to search for these rats that are hidden throughout the entire ship. There's also a cat hidden through here as well. So even for the littlies, there's always something for them to look for. Now, a lot of kids in particular have never seen a potty that goes under a bed. That was the toilet of the era. Now, in this potty, we not only have a potty, but once again, we have one of our rats. And the kids learn and experience about what a potty is, which is something they've mostly never seen before. They're used to modern flushing toilets, but also the rat is a novelty. So, yeah, we try to cater for little kids as well, and with some sort of novelty value. This coat of arms is a replica of what was on the ship in 1864. And you have the Lion of England, the Kangaroo of Australia, you have the sailing ships, the sheep, the cattle, the wheat, which are important to here, but also a miner's pick for the copper that was being mined. We have one of these that's also mounted on the stern of the vessel now. That was commissioned by the Adelaide City Council for us, which is, their official name is also City of Adelaide. We'd certainly encourage people to come and visit the ship. We're open daily. We have our website, cityofadelaide.org.au, and there's a provision for people to donate from that website. We, as I said, we rely on income from the public, so donations are always appreciated.